Masechet Baba Kama Daf Lamed Gimel. We've been talking about a case where you come into my workshop unannounced, and while I'm working, a spark flies out and kills you. So then, since you came in unannounced, I am not liable. But if I let you in, I say yes, come in, and then I still keep working, and a spark flies out and kills you, then I am liable. We saw that there was a statement of Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina that we applied first to the Sefa, and then we applied it to the Resha, and now we're going to apply it to a completely different law. Rav Zavid, Mishmed Rava Matni La Aha. Rav Zavid applied the statement of Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina to the following statement, the following Baraita. In other words, we have a tradition that Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina said this line, we don't know exactly what he was talking about. Or maybe we do, and we're just applying it to see, we're just seeing where else might it apply to see the scope of the scope of the application of the statement. Anyway, he applies it to this Braita. Umasa perat lamamsi et asmo. The pasuk that talks about someone who kills bishogeg says it in the forest. He's chopping wood, and the head flies off and finds a neighbor, meaning the head of the axe, and uses the word matzah, that it reaches, really, that person and kills him. But I didn't do by accident, but I was negligent, so then I go to bishogeg. That's unusual phrase, that matzah, it finds the victim. That word comes to exclude perat lamamsiat asmo, a victim who makes himself found. Meaning, Mikan Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Mishigasta even mitachat yado, v'osihala et rosho v'kibela patur. If a rock falls out of my hands, I throw it, I drop it, whatever, and there was nobody there at the time. Let's say I drop it from upper story, and I look down and see there's nobody there, and so I drop the rock, and then afterwards someone sticks out his head from the window below, and it bangs on his head, and he dies. I am not liable because I did check, and I saw there was nobody there. So I'm only liable to go to Ir Miklat when the person was already there, and then I do something negligent like use my axe and swing my axe, and it flies off, and the person was there already. Then I should have known that the person is there, and should have double checked to make sure there's no possibility that will fly off, or that person's not in the way. Then I go b'shogeg because that's negligent. But if there was nobody there at the time that I swung my axe or dropped the stone, and then the person presented themselves, that's not matzah, but that's rather mamsi et atzmo, and I am not liable. That's the Braita upon which Rav Zid applied the statement, Amar Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina patur migalut v'chaya b'arba devarim. Although in such a case I don't have to go into exile because the person wasn't there at all, and so I'm not liable, and I wasn't negligent enough to require going into exile. Nevertheless, I do have to pay for the 4 payments of the injury, plus all the others, not boshet, not embarrassment, because I didn't have in mind to purposely cause damage, so it's bad, but I do have to pay all the other ones. All right, that's Rav Zavid. Now, man dematne ala aha kol sheken akamaita. Rav Zavid, who applies the statement of Rabbi Yosef on this case, where the victim was not even there at the time that I acted. So really, I'm just very little negligence, and even there I have to pay for the 4 things. All the more so in the previous cases where someone walks into my shop and I know he's there, whether I invited him or not. I would certainly have to pay because I know that he's there, and so that's I'm more negligent on killing him, and therefore I certainly have to pay. On the other way around, the opinions that we saw yesterday that applied the statement of Rabbi Yosef to the previous Braita about the carpenter's shop, they would say only there do I have to pay because the victim was present at the time and I should have been more careful. But in this case, where the victim was not there at all at the time that I was acting, and he stuck his head out, then in that case I would not have to pay. I would not have to pay at all. Not only not going to exile, I wouldn't even have to pay the four things. All right, Tenor Banan. פועלים שבאו לתבוס אחד מבעל הבית, ונגחן שורו של בעל הבית, ונשכן כלבו של בעל הבית, ומת פטור. You have some day workers. They're working out in someone's field, and then they want to come and collect their wages. So they go to the owner's house, and they enter to ask for their wages. And while they're there, and the employer's ox gores them, or his dog bites them, and these workers die. So the homeowner, the employer, is not liable. The idea is that anytime if I go into someone else's property that without permission, then their dog bites me, the homeowner is not liable, because I'm not allowed to trespass, and so this is damage that happens in Reshut HaMazik. Right? The mazik can say, well, "What are you doing in my field? I didn't ask you to be here." And so, therefore, the workers should have found a different way to communicate to get their wages, because they came without permission. That's the Tanakama. But the other opinion says, it's quoted by others, that the workers are permitted. It's in their rights to go and collect their wages from the homeowner. So this is to be expected. At the end of the day, they're going to go find the employer, and so wherever the employer, if he's home, so then they have a right to go to the person's home, and therefore that's the same as coming in with permission to someone's property. If it's with permission, and then the homeowner's dog bites someone who comes in with permission, then they are liable. So therefore, according to Acherim, the employer is in fact liable to pay for their damage. Okay, now we ask, now what exactly is the case? Where is this employer usually found? If he's usually found out in the town, right, in the city, then the workers should go to the city to find him. Why are they going to his home? They're not invited to his home. And so in that case, what's the reason for Acherim? Acherim doesn't make sense that, I know they can go and collect their wages, but they should go to the city and find him where his office is. They should not go to his home, and therefore they did not have permission, and he should not be liable. And if he's always found at home, then what's the reason for Tanakama? Would not Tanakama certainly agrees that they worked all day, they have a right to go and collect their wages, and he's found at home, so that means he has to expect that the workers at the end of the day are going to come to the house to collect their wages, and so therefore he should be liable. He should make sure his dog is safe and not going to attack an invited guest. So we answer, La siricha begavrat shiach vela shechiach v'kareh baba v'amar lehu in mor sabar in ol tatam mashma v'amor sabar in kum aduchtach mashma. Rather, there must be a case of someone who is sometimes found in the town, sometimes he's found sometimes not in the town. He's hard to find. We don't know exactly where he is. Sometimes he's home. So the workers come and they try his house. And so they call him from the gate of his house, and the homeowner says yes. Now, what does I mean by yes? The sages say when he says yes, he means yes, come in, right? When you answer the door, he says yes, come in. So they're assuming that they're allowed to go in. And that's the normal meaning of yes. When someone knocks on the door, that means come in. Since he meant come in and they have permission to come in, and then they got bitten by the dog and die, the employer is liable. On the other hand, Tanakama thinks that no, when you knock on the door and someone says yes, it means yes, wait there. Stand in your place and wait, I'm going to come out to you. Do not come in, right? Yes, meaning yes, I'm coming out to you, stay there. That's what a person usually means, and therefore the homeowner did not give permission to the workers to come in. They came in anyway. That's trespassing, and they got damaged by the dog. then the homeowner is not liable, so that they're only arguing on this in-between case. Tanya gemanda amar in kuma duchtach mashma. We have a baraita that supports the last opinion, which is also that of Tanakama, that when someone says yes, they mean stay there, do not come in. Tanya, poel shenichnas vid bos echad mebal habayit, ungacho shoro shel bal habayit o neshoro kalbo patur, af al pi shenichnas birshut. Amai patur, el alav dekare ababa ve'amar le in, ushmamina in kum aduchtach mashma. If a worker comes to collect his wages from the homeowner and his ox gores him, or the homeowner's dog bites him, the homeowner is not liable, even though the worker came in with permission. Now, if he came in with permission, then why is the homeowner not liable? It should be liable. Rather, it must be this case, that he calls to him from the door, and the homeowner says yes. And we can learn from here that when he says yes, he means stay there. So that's what it's talking about. And now he means stay there. The worker misunderstood and came in, but he came in fact, without permission. So when it says, even though he came in birshut, it doesn't mean actually with permission. It means with what he thought was permission, because he heard yes and he came in thinking he had permission, but in fact he didn't. But since he actually didn't, and usually people, when they say in, they mean wait there. Therefore, the homeowner can follow the usual meaning, and the homeowner is not liable. Next Mishnah: Shne shevarim tamin shechavlu ze et ze meshalamin b'motar chasi nezek. Shnehen muadin meshalamin b'motar chasi b'motar nezek shalem. If we have two oxen, both tam, and they're fighting each other, usually before we had a case of one causes damage to the other, but now they cause damage to each other. They got into a fight and both are damaged, but at different levels. So then the one who has more damage deserves payment from the one who has less damage, and he gets compensated with half of the difference between the damage of the two. So you have two oxen, let's say one got $100 of damage, and one got only $40 of damage. So the difference between them is $60. The one that got $40 of damage has to pay half of that, $30, which is $30 to the guy who got $100 damage. However, if both animals are mu'ad, then they have to pay the full amount of the difference. So therefore, two oxen that are mu'ad, one got $100 damage and one got $40 damage. The one that had only $40 damage have to pay the full amount of the difference, meaning $60 to the other victim. Echad tam ve'echad mu'ad. Mu'ad betam mishalem mota b'motar nezek shalem. Tam b'mu'ad mishalem b'motar chasi nezek. If one of the animals was tam and one was mu'ad, then we see it depends which one is which. If it was a mu'ad, that they both caused harm to each other, but the mu'ad caused more harm to the tam, so then he has to pay, the difference would be the full amount. Because it's the mu'ad, that's the one that's paying, and so you can subtract the damage that happened to the mu'ad from the total, but from the rest of it, he has to pay full amount. However, if the tam is the one that caused more damage to the mu'ad, then the tam, yes, you deduct the amount of the tam, but then he only has to pay half of the difference between them. And the same would be true of two human beings that get into a fight. And again, we're not talking about where one person starts a fight and the other is just defending himself. You're allowed to defend yourself. But we're talking about two people that are equally liable, both started it, and they cause damage to each other. Well, Adam mu'ad le'olam, so humans are considered the same as mu'ad, and therefore we see how much damage did you cause and the other cause, and you take the difference between them, and the one that caused less damage pays the full amount of the difference to the one that caused more damage, because humans are like mu'ad. Adam b'mu'ad u'mu'ad ba'adam. Now, if you have a person who causes damage to a mu'ad animal, or a mu'ad animal causes damage to a person. So these are both the same, they're both mu'ad. So mishalem b'motad nezik shalem, the one that caused the least damage pays the full amount of the difference to the one that had more damage. Adam betam v'tam ba'adam. Adam betam mishalem b'motad nezik shalem. Tam ba'adam mishalem b'motad chasi nezik. If a man got into a fight with a tam animal or a tam animal to a man, so then it depends. If the man incurred less damage than the tam, then the man will take the difference and pay the full amount of the difference, because a man is like as a shor mu'ad. Whereas if the tam is the one that incurred less damage and has to pay the person, then we take the amount of the difference and cut that in half, and the owner of the tam animal only pays half of the difference to the person. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Af tam shechavar ba'adam meshalem b'motar nezik shalem. Rabbi Akiva disagrees fundamentally with Tanakama, and he thinks that the owner of the tam animal that harmed a human being has to pay a full amount. The law of tam paying half, according to Rabbi Akiva, applies only to an animal harming another animal. Then the tam pays half. But in an animal that causes damage to a person, no law of tam, you always have to pay the full amount. Whereas according to Tanakama, a tam animal pays half, no matter whether the victim is a human or an animal. All right, Gemara. Tenor Banan. Kamishpat hazeh ye'aseh lo. Kemishpat shor beshor, kach mishpat shor be'adam. Ma shor beshor tam mishalem chasi nezik u'mu'ad nezik shalem. Av shor be'adam tam mishalem chasi nezik u'mu'ad nezik shalem. We want to find the source. Here's the source for Tanakama that says that the law of tam applies both to humans and to animals. He learns it from this pasuk that says kamishpat hazeh yaseh lo. Let's see the context of the pasuk. We're talking first here about pasuk 28 and 29, an animal that kills a human being, and so it makes a difference between if it's tam, then you kill the animal only. If it's shor nagach mitmol shom, if it's mu'ad, then the owner also deserves a death penalty but can ransom himself. So you see here, this is talking about an animal killing a human and makes a difference between tam and mu'ad in 28 and then 29 and 30. And then here's the key pasuk for us. O ben yigach o bat yigach kamishpat hazeh ye'aseh lo. Or if the ox gores a son or a daughter, then kamishpat hazeh, you do this law, it shall be done to him, this same law. This midrash is taking this pasuk here is talking about not killing, but rather damages, and saying the damages are kamishpat hazeh, are the same as this law. Well, which law? It's actually referring to the comparing it to what happens to an animal that harms another animal, and that's the law down here. It makes a difference between shoreu vamet, macheru, or noda, or if it knows it's shor mu'ad, and then he has to pay a full amount, and this is a half amount. Okay, so it's saying kamishpat hazeh, the law of an animal that harms another animal, we are going to apply also the same kamishpat hazeh to an animal that harms a human being. And so just like regarding an animal harming another animal, we distinguish between tam and muad, so too for an animal that harms a human being, we will make the same distinction. So that's what we say here. Just like the law of an animal against another animal, so too the law of an animal against a person. Just like animal against another animal, if it's tam, it pays half. And if it's muad, pays a full amount. So too, an animal that harms, not kills, but harms another person, tam pays half, and muad pays a full amount. Okay, that's the Tanakama. How about Rabbi Akiva? What does he do with this pasuk? Haomer kamishpat hazeh katachton velo ka'alyon. When we say like this law, it's only going on the lower law, not the upper law. Meaning that when we had here the kamishpat hazeh, it's saying this like the last one, meaning the mu'ad, that will be the same as that in the law of an animal. animal, that just like an animal that harms another animal, you pay a full amount, so too an animal that harms a human being will be the same in terms of the mu'ad, but only the mu'ad is the same, but not the tam. The tam is not the same as an animal. For animal, it pays half, but an animal that harms a human being pays the full amount. That's hazeh, limiting word, to saying we're not comparing both laws, only the last law, which is mu'ad. Now we ask, Yachol Meshalem Mina Aliyah. Now there's another difference between Tam and Mu'ad. Besides the fact that Tam pays half and Mu'ad pays all, another difference is that what they pay from. A Tam, when only the owner of the Tam has a maximum liability of the value of the attacking ox. That's the most that he has to pay. Whereas for Mu'ad, the owner of the Mu'ad has to pay from the best quality land, and he has to pay a full amount. Does not have limited liability. So what about in terms of that? According to the Rabbi Akiva, when we say an ox that harms a human being, it has to pay a full amount, even there's no law of tam. Does that mean also that he has to pay from the best land? Has to pay 100%. It's not limited by the amount, the value of the body of the attacking animal. Therefore, the next two words shall be done to him. Lo, to the animal. That teaches us that the owner of the short tam only has to pay maximum the value of that animal that attacked, and does not have to pay from his own best land. So even though he is liable to pay the full amount, meaning not half, of the damage, but still he won't have to pay more than the value of the animal that attacked. Okay, that's Rabbi Akiva. V'Rabbanan zeh lamali. Rabbanan, the word zeh is a limiting word. According to them, what is it limiting? And the answer is lefotro marba'a devarim. He doesn't have to pay all four things. The thing only has to pay damage. The four things are only paid by a human that causes damage to another human, has to pay for the missing work and the pain and the suffering and the medical bills. But if it's an animal, then it's limited. That's what the zeh is referring to. So according to Rabbanan, tam, animal that harms a human being, tam pays half, Mu'ad pays all, but only damages, not any of the four. Now, Rabbi Akiva agrees with that law, so what's his source? Because he already used zeh for something else. But Rabbi Akiva, as you know that an animal does not pay for the four other payments. A different pasuk in Vayikra that says if a person causes damage to another person, then he has to pay those things. Ish ba'amito velo shor ba'amito, only a human against another human, but not an ox against another human. Ve'rabanan, and so the rabbis, what do they do with that pasuk? How come they don't learn it from there? They answer, from that pasuk, I might have thought only regarding suffering, because suffering is a subjective amount, and so that is limiting. You only have to, the suffering is only human to another human. But for medical cost and loss of livelihood, those are definite amounts. And so you might have thought that those are included, just like you have to pay for damage, which is a fixed amount. So too, the medical bills, right? There's a fixed amount that's on the bill. And how much did you not go to work, and how much did you lose? I might have thought that those maybe the owner of the ox that damages a human being does have to pay those, and so that's why I need not only the pasuk in Vayikra, but according to Rabbanan also Kamishpat Hazeh. Zeh is limiting to say that he only pays damages, but not the four other payments. The next Mishnah teaches Shor Shaveh Maneh Shenagach Shor Shaveh Matayim Ve'en Nebela Yafa Kelum Notel Et HaShor. We're talking about a shor tam that's worth $100 that gores a shor that's worth $200. Since it's a shor tam, so he has to pay only half. The victim is worth $200, and we're assuming that the corpse of the victim is not worth anything. It was completely destroyed, so there's zero there. Therefore, the total amount of the damage is $200. Now, since it's short time, he has to pay only 100, and it happens to be that the short time itself is worth 100, so therefore he has to give the entire amount. That's also the limit. If it was more, he still wouldn't have to pay more. So what happens? The nizak, the one that was damaged, takes the short time. It just takes the whole thing, because that's the full value that he's owed, since the short time is worth half of the 200, and so he can collect the entire thing. Okay, matnitin maneh Rabbi Akiva. The Mishnah is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, who says that the nizak, the body of the shor, that gourd, belongs to the nizak. The nizak could just take it. As we see in the Baraita, it actually was a machloket. Tetanya, yusham hashor bebetin, Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Akiva omer huchlat hashor. According to Rabbi Ishmael, after the mazik, the nizak, gourd, the nizak, and then they come to court, and the court decides, okay, this is how much you have to pay. At that point, the Bet Din should go ahead and appraise the shor tam that did the damage, and then they will assign that amount and say, you have to pay it. In other words, the shor tam belongs to the mazik. The mazik keeps his shor. He has to pay a monetary amount. So therefore, this is just a monetary amount. It's like a loan. And the Bet Din says, listen, you have to pay this. Now, if he decides to pay cash, that's good. He can pay cash. If he decides he doesn't have any cash, then the Bet Din can step in and say, okay, well, you don't have cash. You know what? We're going to assign over the shor to the nizak. But in the regular case, the shor tam is kept by the mazik. The Bishmel, however, says huchlat shor. It's already assigned. Once they go to Bet Din, and Bet Din here's the case, at that point the nizak already has either the whole thing, if he's required the whole thing, as in the Mishnah, or let's say it's not the whole thing. Let's say the damage is less. Then the nizak has a share in the animal. He has partial ownership of the goring animal already. So it's not a monetary obligation, but rather he gets a share in it. And so this Mishnah that says notelat hashor, he could just come and take it. And there's no option of paying cash. The nizak can just take it. That's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Now, b'may kami palge. What's the essence of the machloket? Rabbi Ishmael savar baal chov hu vezuzehu demasik le. Rabbi Akiva omer savar shutafe ninhu. Rabbi Ishmael thinks that the payment that's owed by the mazik to the nizak is like a loan, and so a loan is primarily paid by cash. Now, if there's no cash, then you can say, oh, no cash. You go find other assets that the person might have. And so we'll talk about that in a second. But basically, it's a payment that's owed in cash. And Rabbi Akiva says, no, they are considered partners. That once we understand how much it was, and the Bet Din sees the case, then the nizak automatically gets a partnership in the shor tam, according to the amount that he is owed. Now, what's the source of their machloket? From this pasuk, machru et hashor hachai vechasu et kaspo. This is talking about a shor tam, and it says that they, who's they, we'll see, sell the ox that is alive. That's the goring ox. And then they will split the value of it, split the profits from the sale. Now, who is selling it? Rabbi Ishmael sabar lebedina kamazhar rachamana, Rabbi Akiva sabar lenizak umazik mazhar lehu rachamana. Rabbi Ishmael thinks that the mazik keeps the animal, and so therefore the who is going to sell it, that's talking about the Bet Din. If the guy comes up with cash and pays it, good. If not, then the Bet Din has to step in, and they have to seize and sell the shor and split the money according to how much the nizak is owed. But otherwise, the mazik owns it. Rabbi Akiva says, no, the pasuk is talking to begin with to the nizak and mazik, that they have shared ownership over it. Again, assuming that the value of the shor tam is more than what's owed. If it's less, then the nizak will own the whole thing and goes automatically to him. But if it's not the whole thing and they have a partnership in it, then the nizak and mazik have to come together, sell it, and then they can split it by splitting the money. That's a lot more valuable than actually chopping the animal in half, because then it won't be very valuable. So you sell it and split the money. But essentially, the nizak has a share in the body of the shor tam. Okay, my benaihu. What would be a case where there would be a practical difference between them? Here's one. Hekidisho nizak ika benaihu. If the nizak decides that he's going to make this animal hekdesh, well, according to Rabbi Akiva, the animal belongs to the nizak, so yes, he can make it hekdesh. Whereas according to Rabbi Ishmael, the animal still belongs to the mazik, and therefore the nizak cannot make it hekdesh. It's not his. So that will be a practical difference. Now we ask, Be'amine Rav Rav Nachman, mecharo mazik. Little Ishmael mahu. Now we were expecting it to be the same as hekdesh. What's the difference between hekdesh and machar? So on the face of it, it sounds like, according to Bishmael, the animal belongs to the mazik, and so therefore the mazik should be able to sell it. But here's the two sides of his question. On the one hand, the simple answer would be that, according to Bishmael, this is a loan. So the mazik owes money to the nizak, but the mazik keeps ownership of the shor, and therefore, if he wants to sell the shor, he can sell it. Or do we say, or since even though the mazik owes money to the nizak has a lien on the property of the mazik, and a lien specifically on the shor. And so because he has a lien on it, so then though we tell the mazik, hey, you can't sell this, right? There's a lien on it. Go and satisfy your payment, and then you could sell it after. You can't sell it while there's a lien. So that's the two sides of the question. And Rav Nachman answered, you cannot sell it, even though it belongs to the mazik. It's his property, but nevertheless, there's a lien on it, so he can't just simply sell it outright. Now we ask, there's a baraita that says, if the mazik sells it, it is sold. So that contradicts Rav Nachman. And Nachman could answer, chozer v'gobehu. What he means is that it's sold temporarily. Yes, the mazik can sell it temporarily, but then if he doesn't come up with money, then Nizak can go and get it back. So that's when Nachman said, Eno machur means it's not a final sale. You can do it a temporary sale. Now, if the Nizak can go and take it back from him, so in what sense is it sold? It's not really sold if it's not a permanent sale. So then what is it? And the answer is, for plowing. The buyer can plow with it in the meantime. The buyer hopefully knows that there's a lien on this. And he says, okay, listen, I understand that this might be collected. In the meantime, I'll use it for plowing. It's fine. And then if it gets collected, it gets collected. So it is a sale for that time period. So it still is a useful sale for it has a practical difference, even though there's still a lien on it and the nizak might come and take it. Now we ask, Shema mina loveo mocher metaltalin betin govin lo mehen. If I borrow something and then I sell property, does that mean that the Bet Din, if I don't pay back the loan, then the Bet Din can come and collect from the movable item that I sold? We know that the lien applies to land, right? So if I borrow money and I sell land, then the Bet Din, if I don't pay it back, can come and take that land that I sold after the time of the loan. But regarding metaltalin, right, there's not usually a lien on movable items. And so the answer is, no, in this case it's different. It's like someone who made apotiki is like a collateral. If I borrow something and I say, listen, this watch will be collateral, I designate a specific thing to be collateral, then you can go, the betin can come, or the malveh can come and collect from that movable item. Generally, you can't move from movable items unless it's actually designated. And here, even if you didn't designate it officially, just from the Torah law that says that the mazik pays from the amount of the body of the shor tam, so just that law itself already creates this designation that the animal is a collateral, and that's why in this case you could collect from the movable item, even though in general you cannot collect from movable items. We ask about that. This law of apotiki, of a collateral, Rava says that works with a slave. One can designate a slave to be collateral, and therefore, if I borrow money and then sell the slave, the lender can come and collect from the slave. But with an ox, even if I designate an ox as collateral and then I sell it, the lender cannot come and take it. So in other words, this apoteki designation as collateral does not work with a movable item like an animal. And so we answer, Eved ma'itama mishum de'it lekala. What's the difference between an Eved and a shor? When I designate a slave as collateral in a loan, then that has public knowledge. Everybody talks about it, and then anyone who buys a slave will know there's a lien on it, and so they'll take that into account when they buy it. So here, an animal in general, if I designate an animal to be collateral, that's not going to be such big news. Nobody cares about just an animal, and so that will not have publicity, and therefore the buyer won't know that there's a lien on it, and so that's why we say no, you can't make a lien on animals in general. However, in this case is different. Since this animal was involved in an injury accident that caused damage, so then everybody knows about that. Oh, that animal caused damage. And everybody will know automatically, oh, the owner of that animal is going to have to pay. And if he has to pay, he may have to pay from the body of that animal itself, right? There's a lien on it. And therefore, since everybody knows that there's a lien on it, therefore, it can be used as collateral, so that even if it's sold, the buyer will know there's a lien on it, and they may have to give it up. And so, yes, it is permitted. This animal can be, in fact, even though it's a movable item, can be designated as collateral. Taneh Rav Tachlifa bar Ma'arava Kameh de Rabbi Abhu. Rav Tachlifa from the west repeated the following baraita in front of Rabbi Abhu. Mecharo en machor hiktisho mukdash. If who's he, sells this short tam, it's not sold, but if he makes it hekdesh, it is hekdesh. Now, that is curious because this seems to be a contradiction, right? Whoever can sell it should also be able to make ekdesh if they own it. And if they don't own it, then they should not be able to sell it or make it ekdesh. So how could this be? We're going to ask this question. Mecharoman, who sells it? Ilema mazik. If it's the mazik that's doing all the actions in this baraita, mecharo en machor. You're telling me it's not a good sale. Well, who says it's not a good sale? Maneh Rabbi Akiva hi damar huchlata shor. Rabbi Akiva says it goes right to the nizak. That's why it's not a good sale. Hold on. But then the Sefa v'kedisho mukdash atan Rabbi Ishmael, that if he makes it hekdesh, it is hekdesh. Well, if that, according to Rabbi Akiva, the mazik also would not be able to make a hekdesh. It should say hekdisho, right? Eno mukdash. But the Sefa that says it is hekdesh, that's Rabbi Ishmael, the Amad Yusham Asho bebetin, who says that the mazik keeps it, and then the betin will go and deal with the transfer of the money. So we have a contradiction. It can't be the mazik because then half will be Rabbi Akiva and half will be Rabbi Ishmael. Ela nizak mecharo eno machor maneh Rabbi Ishmael. So what is it? The nizak that's selling it? Well, according to that, when you say it's not a sale, that must be Rabbi Ishmael because Rabbi Ishmael says it belongs to the mazik. That's why the nizak can't sell it. But if the nizak is doing everything, then hekdesho mukdash atan Rabbi Akiva. Only Rabbi Akiva would say that the nizak can make it hekdesh because it belongs to the nizak. But according to Rabbi Ishmael, if the nizak does it, it's no good. So we have a contradiction this way also. So how are we going to explain this baraita? Le'olam mazik dibira kol. In fact, we'll go up to the original and say it's in fact the mazik that does it, and in fact everyone can agree. So mechado eno machor, that makes sense according to Rabbi Akiva. Belongs to the mazik, so according to Rabbi Akiva, it belongs to the nizak, and that's why if the mazik tries to sell it, it's no good. So that's certainly good according to Rabbi Akiva. Afil Rabbi Ishmael teha mishabeda le nizak. But we can explain this even according to Rabbi Ishmael, because even though the mazik owns the animal, the nizak has a lien on it. And now we're saying, as we said above, that you can't make a permanent sale. Rav Nachman said you could do a temporary sale. He could use it for plowing in the meantime. But now we're saying, well, now in this baraita, we're calling that not a sale. It's not a permanent sale. So even the Bishmael who says that the mazik keeps the shor that did the goring, but still he can't sell it permanently because the nizak has a lien on it. Hikdisho mukdash afilu Rabbi Akiva. Now hikdisho mukdash, that's certainly according to the Bishmael that would be fine because the mazik owns it, so the mazik can make it hekdesh. But even Rabbi Akiva, who says that belongs to the nizak, If the mazik makes it hekdesh, he would still have to do some redemption of it. Mishum Rabbi Abu, Damar Rabbi Abu gezerah shema yomru hekdesh yoseh belo pijon. In a similar case, Rabbi Abu says that even someone that doesn't fully own an item but just has a lien on an item, still if that guy makes it hekdesh, even though technically from the letter of the law it's not hekdesh, but we make it gezerah because people seeing it will think that he has ownership over it. And they'll say, oh, look, he just took it for himself without redeeming. Therefore, he has to give some amount, even if not the full amount, to redeem it. In this case also, even though according to the Rabbi Akiva, the nizak owns it, not the mazik. Nevertheless, from people's perspective, they don't know that it's totally transferred yet, and they know this is the animal of the mazik. So if they see the mazik make it hekdesh, and then go ahead and use it, so if someone uses it without doing any pijon, they will think that hekdesh is not a real thing, and you don't have to redeem it. Therefore, even though he doesn't technically have to, as a gezerah, we make the mazik do some pijon. So it's not really fully hekdesh, it's only that we treat it like hekdesh so that people won't get confused. We now have a relatively long baraita that explains what the law will be in various cases. Tenor Rabbanan, shortam shezik ad shelo amad bedin, mecharo machor hikdisho mukdash, shechato untano b'matana ma she'asa asui. Misha amad bedin, mecharo eno machor hikdisho, eno mukdash, shechato untano b'matana, lo asa velo chelum. So we're making a distinction between before they came to court and after they came to court. All right, there's a way to explain this baraita, both according to the Bishmael and according to the Rabbi Akiva. I think a simpler way is according to the Rabbi Akiva, who generally says that the animal goes right to the nizak, but we can explain if this is Rabbi Akiva, then that would be only after they go to court, then it automatically transfers and the nizak owns the shortam. But before they go to betin, well, nothing happened yet, no witnesses came yet, who says anything happened? So you can't shift over any money before it got seen by the court. Therefore, before you go to court, if the mazik comes and sells it, it's a sale because he owns it in the meantime. If the mazik makes it hekdesh, it is mukdash. And if he slaughters it, he can slaughter it. Right now it's worth less. Well, that's what it's worth. Or if he gives it away as a gift, then it's a valid gift. However, once it goes to betin, now, and the betin says, okay, now the nizak automatically has a share in it, or maybe the whole thing, if he owes the whole thing. And in that case, if the mazik tries to sell it, it's not his to sell, it's not a valid sale. If the mazik tries to make desh, no, sorry, it belongs to the nizak. You can't make it ekdesh. And if the mazik slaughters it or gives it away as a gift, that does nothing, right? And he'll be liable for slaughtering it, and the gift is not a valid gift. Now, kadmu ba'alei chavot v'higbihu, ben chav ad shelo hizik, ben hizik ad shelo chav, lo asa velo chelum, lefi she'en mishtalem ela migufo. If creditors of the mazik come and take the ox as a collection of their loan. Now, it doesn't matter if their loan happened before the incident of the injury or happened after the incident of the injury. It doesn't matter. They can't collect anything because the payment to the nizak goes from the body of the animal, and therefore the body of the animal goes right to the nizak. And so these creditors, sorry, this is not yours to collect. All right, this is already transferred, designated as compensation to the nizak specially, and other people cannot take it, even if their loan was actually before the incident of the injury. Mu'ad shehizik, ben shamad bedin, ben shalamad bedin, mecharo machor, hikdesho mukdash, shechaton tanu b'matana, ma she'asa asui. Now, all that was a shor tam. A shor mu'ad is completely different because shor mu'ad, the mazik pays from his best land, has nothing to do with the animal. Therefore, if a mu'ad causes damage, it makes no difference whether it's before they went to court or after they went to court. The mazik always owns his shor mu'ad all the time. It never gets designated for payment. Therefore, if he can sell it, if he makes it ekdesh, it's good. If he decides to do shechita or give it away as a gift, that's done, it's good. Kadmu ba'aleh chavot v'igbihu ben chav ad shelo hizik ben hizik ad shelo chav ma she'asa asur lefi she'en mishtalem ela mina aliyah. And if other creditors of the mazik come and take the animal to pay for their loan, whether the loan was before the injury or after the injury, it doesn't matter. If they took it, it's theirs, because the payment of the mazik is only from his best quality land, not from the body of the ox that gored, and therefore the ox that gored is the full ownership of the mazik. Amar Mor. Now we're going to go back and analyze. Mecharo machur. What do you mean that it's sold? How could it be totally sold if it belongs to some extent to the nizak? Okay, so remember, this is before they went to Beit Din, so there's no formal decision yet. Nevertheless, it seems that already at this point, we're explaining according to the Bi Akiva, that still the nizak still has a lien on it at least. So how could you say that the mazik can just sell it if there's a lien? And as we answered before, he's selling it temporarily so it can be used for plowing in the meantime. Okay, fine. Hikidisho mukdash mishum de biabhu. Now, if the mazik makes it hekdesh, it is hekdesh. Hold on. Even here, even though this is also talking about before they go to Beit Din, so there's no formal transfer yet. Nevertheless, the nizak still has a hold on it. He has a lien. It's going to go to him, and just at the time of it goes to Beit Din. So can you really say that the mazik can fully make it hekdesh? Oh, here we'll invoke once again the biabhu that says we make a gezerah because you can't just let it go without anything. And so even though eventually it'll go to the nizak and be fully his, and so the mazik does not have a full right to make it hekdesh, nevertheless he has to do something in order to redeem it, so that people won't get confused and think that you can make something hekdesh and not redeem it. Shechaton tanu matana ma she'asa asui. Bishlam matana ma she'asa asui leridia. Okay, so again, if the mazik does shechita or gives it away, so we understand giving away as a present, that's done, but that's not a full permanent gift, because if it turns out that the nizak gets it, the Beit Din decides, the nizak gets it, and it goes to him, so then the nizak will be able to collect it back and get it back from the receiver of the gift. Ela shechato letev lishtalem mi besareh. But regarding shechita, do you say what's done is done, and sorry, there's no more animal, and you can't take anything, you don't get anything at all, the nizak doesn't get anything? He should still be able to get payment from the meat. Well, okay, he slaughtered it, so give the nizak the meat that you slaughtered. It's worth a lot of money, that meat, so he could still be able to pay. The mazik should still be able to pay, and the nizak collect from the slaughtered animal. What do you mean? What's done is done, as if it's nothing left. The Tanya, and we know that this is true, that the mazik has to pay not only from the live shoratam, but even from a slaughtered shoratam, as it says, Chai enli elachai shchato minayin tamud lomar machiru et hashor mikol makom. The pasuk says that machiru et hashor hachai, that they sell the live animal, the shoratam. So if it's alive, certainly you sell it. I understand, and then you split the money, divided accordingly. So if it says chai, I understand if it's chai. How do I know? What if they did shechita over it? How do you know that still the mazik has to pay with the value of the animal that was nishchat? Because it also says machuret hashor. You could just stop there, right? Period. You don't have to put the chai. Sell the shor, no matter what state it's in. So we know that you do have to pay. So how come the Braita said, if it's slaughtered, what's done is done, sorry, you lose out? You're right. In fact, the mazik will have to give over or pay from the meat that was slaughtered. But the point of this Braita is that the diminished value, right? A live animal is going to be worth more than the slaughtered animal, and after it's slaughtered, it continues to diminish. It's not as fresh. So who bears that loss? And the answer is the nizak. If the mazik goes and slaughters it, so now, and after a while, now it's worth less than it was before. What's done is done, because at that point, it was still in the mazik's property before the court decided anything, and therefore the loss is borne out by the nizak. Amar Rav Huna bered Rav Yehoshua, Zot omeret hamazik shi'budo shel chavero patur. Rav Huna, son of Rav Yehoshua, says, I can derive a more expanded law from this, that if someone causes damage to an item that's lien property, he is not liable. So here's the example. Let's say you own land, and that land is lien to someone else. that you borrowed money from. I come along and I damage that land. I go make holes in it and ruin the land. I do not have to pay the lien holder. Now, even though the lien holder, he's relying on that land to collect his loan. So he needs it. They'll say it was designated. That specific land is designated for his loan. However, right now, it doesn't belong to him. So the damage I'm causing is only indirect. It's just that later on, when he collects the loan, now he'll have a problem because he won't be able to collect, or it won't be worth as much. But right now, he doesn't own it. And so I'm not directly causing damage to him, and therefore I don't have to pay. How do we derive it from this case? Because this is the same thing. The mazik has an animal. He owns this animal, and the nizak has a lien on it because eventually he's going to come and collect it. If someone else, or the mazik himself, causes damage to his own shor, this is the shor time that gored in the first place, by slaughtering it and diminishing its value, he does not have to pay the nizak for the difference. So you see, that's the same thing. It's only an indirect cause to something that has a lien on it. You don't have to pay the lien holder. Now we ask, Pishita, Ravuna, isn't that obvious? Anyone could have figured that out. Why'd you have to tell us that? The answer is, Mautetem ahatam hu damar le lo chasartich velamidi damar le zika ba'alma hu deshakle minach aval ba'alma lichayev kamash malan. Because I might have thought that in the case of the ox, the mazik can say, I didn't actually diminish anything from you. All I took away was a wind, its life. Right, it's breathing spirit. In other words, you take a live animal and you do shechita, you weigh it, right? It's right there, and then you do shechita and you weigh it. It's the same mass. It's the same thing. Just one is alive and one is not alive. So over there, maybe you could say that mazik is not liable because he didn't change the physically the animal. It's still there, and it can't walk around or anything. I mean, that is a kind of a big difference, but at least in weight, it's the same thing. However, if I caused actual physical damage, like to a land, I go and I dig it up and I ruin it, and it's not usable anymore. Then I might have thought that only in that case I would be liable for causing damage to land that you are holding as a lien to someone else. And therefore, Rav Huna says, no, this doesn't make a difference. This is the same. One can derive one from the other. Taking its life or causing physical damage are both the same thing, and one is not liable in one's not liable in the other. Now we ask Rav Huna again, why do you have to say this? Because we could have derived that from a statement that Rabbah said. Rabbah says, if I come along, you have some IOUs that you're holding on, and you can use these loan documents to go in and collect land from someone else. I come over and I burn your loan documents. I don't have to pay you. Why? Because even though now you're going to have a hard time collecting your loan, you won't be able to collect it from that land. That's indirect damage. I didn't destroy your property directly, physically. Okay, so Rav Huna, why do you need to tell us your chidush? If I can derive it from a Rabbah. And here also, it's just, there's no monetary damage, just a piece of paper. So the answer is, because if I only had the Rabbah, I might have thought, in that case, I'm not liable for burning your documents because I can claim I just burned pieces of paper. Well, the actual damage, it causes you now not to be able to finish collecting your loan from land, but the physical thing that I destroyed is just a piece of paper, not worth much. So I might have thought only there I am patur, but if I actually go and you're holding land, and someone else has a lien on it, and I dig pits and ditches and caves and I ruin the land, maybe there I would be liable to the lien holder, and that's why Rav Huna has to come and say that no, don't think that, because after all, our case of the mazik killing his own shor tam is a physical change, and it's more actually similar to digging pits, ditches, and caves. You're changing the status of this thing. I mean, even digging pits and the dirt is still there. It's just in a different place, but it's not usable. You can't plow with it. And so that's more similar to the animal that now is not usable for plowing and for whatever else, even if it's the same mass. And nevertheless, one is not liable. So I might have thought that if I had only Dabba, I might have thought that there I'm not liable because I just burnt pieces of paper, but otherwise I am liable. So Rav Huna comes and says, no, that's not true. And so he can derive from the case of killing the shortam that there it is a more significant change. So it's not just burning a paper, but also, and not only in killing the animal where just taking away its life, but it's still there, but I didn't ruin the meat itself. And so Rav Huna's chidush is that even if I go and I destroy a land, nevertheless I didn't cause the damage directly. It's just that later on the lien holder won't have what to collect from. All right, now we'll finish off the explanation of that Baraita. The Baraita said, Kadmu ba'aleh chovot v'higbihu ben hab ad shelo hizik ben hizik ad shelo hab lo asa v'lo chilum lefi she'en meshalem ela migufo. If the mazik is holding on to this his shortam, and the nizak eventually is going to collect it, but in the meantime, some creditor that the mazik owes money to that guy, and that he goes and collects and takes that ox for himself. So he has done nothing, whether the loan was before the damage or whether the damage came first before the loan. He has not done anything. Instead, the nizak can go and take it back because the nizak is paid from the body of the ox, and so that's it. He has it seems like more than a lien. It's really his. All right, now we're going to analyze. Bishlama hizikat shelohav nizakin kadmu. I understand the case where the injury happened first, before the loan, then the injured party, the nizak, his lien on the animal came first, so he deserves it, and that's why he can go and collect it from that lender. But if the loan was before the injury, then it should be that the lender can in fact go and take it first. So we don't understand why he wouldn't be able to do that. That's question number one. And two, ואפילו הזיקת שלוחה בעל חוב קדים, שמאמינה בעל חוב מאוחר שקדם וגבה מה שגבה לא גבה. And even if the damage happened before the loan, so the lender is actually second in line, but the lender, he came and seized it first. Now, what happens in such a case? This is a big discussion back in Masechet Ketubot, where the question is if the second guy in line, even though he should wait his turn, but if he jumps the gun and takes it, can he keep it or not? So can we derive from here an answer that if a second guy in line comes and takes it first, then he cannot keep it, because that's exactly what happens here. The lender is second in line because it happened after the damage, but he went and grabbed it first, and now you're telling me that the nizak can come and take it from him. So can we answer that question and say that it's not derived? And because over there was a big question, it wasn't so simple. So we answered la leolam emalach ma shegaba gaba. No, for this question, in fact, if someone jumps the gun and takes it, and really it should be theirs in general. So we're not answering that question. And in this case of the ox, v'shane hatam damale ilu gaba chava lamina chava gabele tahai Torah da'azikhan mineh mishtalamna. This case with shortam is different because the nizak can tell the lender who's coming to collect it, this is what. And if you were first, let's say you did the loan and you collected it before my ox went and gored and damaged someone, and damaged my ox, right? Let's say this ox that had belonged to the mazik, let's say you had collected it already beforehand, and then it went around and it did damage to my ox. I would have then come to you and I would have taken the ox anyway. So this ox, I don't care whose ox it is, this ox caused me damage. And if it happened to be that the damage happened first, then I certainly get the ox. And if the damage happened after the loan, so what? So you want the ox? It was yours. You had a lien on it now, and you collected it. It was yours. Well, that's your ox that damaged mine, and so I'm going to collect it anyway, right? Because I am paid, right? This ox that damaged, it's from it that I am paid, and therefore I have a right to take it no matter what. So therefore, the case of ox is different. It doesn't matter whose loan comes, which liability, which lien comes first. That's the answer to this question, and it doesn't matter who takes it first. In all cases, the nizak can say, this ox, I don't care whose it is, where it was, who had a lien, this ox caused damage, I get to collect from this ox, and therefore you have to turn it over. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'amen.